Hey there, Benjamin Krause here on another exciting day of Friday, which should excite everybody because it is the last work day of the week, and we are here to talk to you about training into a new career. Yay! And we're going to talk about ways to get it completely paid for by the Department of Veterans Affairs. So if you happen to be tuning into this and you're wondering, hey, wow, I would really like to get free training to do whatever it makes sense to do, of course. Good news is we have feedback for you that may help. And so we're going to talk about that today. I have a weird phone issue, but don't worry about it because we're doing things and it's going to be exciting. So anyway, if you happen to get this and you have questions, chime in. I am going to do my little invite here that I always tend to do at the beginning of these. Why do I do this? Why do I invite people? Because Facebook does not do a very good job of that. So we are live in the group talking about law school training and other things. Okay. All right. So, having said that, I have a little bit of an issue here with, don't you like it when phone technology kind of like comes up and, give me a quick second here. Live stream. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I am all over the place today. That is just kind of how things go. So here we go. Boom. We're ready. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I have a question. All right. If you happen to be watching this from YouTube or LinkedIn, well, not LinkedIn, YouTube or Facebook, ask a question and I will do my best to provide an answer. Now, just so you know, when I am doing this, I don't see LinkedIn comment like requests for information because for whatever reason, the API doesn't talk. And so I go through the LinkedIn questions later, just so you know. So if you have any questions, let them rip. I'll do my best to answer that at the end. And then otherwise, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about training, and we're going to talk about whether veteran readiness and employment, and there are actually some other things, but whether veteran readiness and employment will cover law school. So if you are a disabled veteran, meaning you have a disability from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and you're thinking like, I might want to go become a lawyer or something like that. Either I'm unemployed or my current job isn't like a good fit for me because it aggravates my disabilities, especially like if you're, working in a factory or you have a type of job that is very physical in nature and it aggravates your disabilities. Wow. You may have a chance to get that law school paid for. Do you know how many non-veterans would love to have law school paid for? Probably every single one of them, right? That happens to go to law school and happens to have to like self-fund it, right? Because law school is super expensive. If you go to a reasonably decent school, you are going to come out of law school with about, $100,000 to $200,000 in debt these days. So that's how much it costs to get this form of training. And wow, like if you can get that for free, super duper. If you can get that for free and also get subsistence payments and get your books and fees paid for too, wow, that's seems like a really good deal. Why wouldn't I do that, Johnny? So anyway, we're going to talk about that because there are a lot of rumors out there about whether or not veterans can get training paid for, right? And we definitely want to get into that because what's the truth? Is the truth that you can get entry-level training, which might be an associate's degree or maybe a bachelor's if you're lucky, or is the truth that you could actually get a doctorate paid for, including maybe becoming a lawyer or becoming a physician or, meaning a doctor or becoming a professor of some kind or a psychologist? Can you do all those things? And you're telling me tuition could be paid for? Well, you know what? Maybe that's the case. And so we're going to talk about it. Again, if you have questions and you're looking at this and you're like, I may have a question. I would like to maybe have an attorney respond to my, question with information that might be useful. Well, hey, you're in luck here. I am an attorney. I am not just any attorney. I am a VA accredited attorney who happened to write a book about Veteran Readiness and Employment, formerly Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment. And they, in fact, also paid for my undergrad and paid for my law degree and paid for part of my startup to help veterans sue the Department of Veterans Affairs. So how did all of this happen? Could it be true that Veteran Readiness and Employment might pay for veterans to become lawyers and things like that? Well, okay, if you're here and you're still watching this and you're like, what on earth is this dude talking about? My name is Ben Krause. I started a Facebook group called Disabled Veterans Chapter 31 Voc Rehab. It is the biggest Voc Rehab centric group online that is also coincidentally curated by a licensed attorney. I am also VA accredited and represent veterans when they get denied benefits, both for veteran readiness and employment, as well as disability compensation, help with med mal, help with certain other things, including CRSC cases, including disability discharge upgrades, all kinds of fun stuff. I do lots of things, and we like to provide a lot of service to our clients here at my law practice, and that includes, veteran readiness and employment. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. So if you're watching and you're wondering, I hope I have your attention, and I hope that you're interested in getting law school paid for, or medical school paid for, or some other kind of thing paid for that's a little bit above and beyond, an undergrad or an associate's degree. I've been getting a lot of feedback from veterans over the past couple months where they have been told by their VRCs, well, I really want to do, whatever the thing is, like something grand. And the VRC is like, well, we're only here to help you get entry-level employment. And if you want something better than entry-level employment, then you're going to have to, pay for that yourself. You're going to have to, maybe take out student loans, or hopefully maybe you get a scholarship or something like that. But we don't, not at VA, we don't pay for people to become doctors and lawyers. Why would we want veterans to become leaders in society? Horrible idea. We don't want those veterans to be leaders. We want them to, work their way up like every other person that didn't serve their country. We want them to, suffer and be super in debt so they can only focus on paying off that debt like an indentured servant for the rest of their life. That's what it is. So anyway, the good news is, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic here. The good news is VR&E does pay for doctorates for veterans that are qualified, disabled veterans in particular, obviously, because you can't use the program if you're not disabled. So, yes, the answer here is absolutely Veteran Readiness and Employment will cover qualified veterans who have an employment handicap, and frequently a serious employment handicap, to become doctors and lawyers, depending on, of course, if you present evidence that's favorable to you and you have a VRC, vocational rehabilitation counselor, who is worth their salt and understands how to understand your evidence, and is also not the type that believe that veterans should never get grad school covered, because there are those VRCs that are out there. You know who you are if you're watching this. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You know who you are, because they exist. And those are, people that work in the government who believe that it is their job to actually not implement the will of Congress and to not implement the regulations, and instead rely on local policies and use those local policies to trump their obligations as federal servants, federal employees. They exist, and you know who you are. You're out there, and you work at the VA, and I know you. I've worked against you multiple times. Anyway, so there are quite a few out there that are bad, and vocational rehabilitation counselors that don't want to follow the law, and we catch them. But the good news is there's a way to deal with that. You can go get help from a VSO. You can fight your appeal pro bono or pro se rather, or you can come talk to a law firm like mine, and we'll take a look at your case for free, and give you an idea, an indication whether or not we think it makes sense for you to appeal your case. Push it forward. So anyway, the good news is there's hope. The good news is God wants you to do the best that you can do. And guess what? That's also consistent with economics. Economics also wants and calls for people to, be efficient with their money and to maximize that opportunity, because that's really what it's all about. And wouldn't you know, it's also biblical to maximize the opportunity. It's so crazy how those things, those truths seem to work out, and you're rewarded for doing the most that you can with the options that you have available to you. It's amazing. And so if you're a disabled veteran and you're watching this and you're like, wow, I would love to do a different career. My career sucks, or my career, aggravates my disabilities. It's horrible, whatever it is. Yeah, there's hope, man. Get out there, or woman, or whatever, get out there, put in your application for Veteran Readiness and Employment. It is a VA form 28-1900, and fax that in. Hey, buddy, I'm on the thing. I can't. Okay, bye. Thank you. Can you shut the door? All right, hang on. Sorry. Hey. Okay, whatever. It's fine. So anyway, that's what happens with kids, right? They open doors and then they leave them open. That's fine. So anyway, I want you to know, law school is covered. Medical school, covered. I've helped people win appeals for these things. Sometimes it takes 5 years. Sometimes it doesn't take long at all. It just depends on what the evidence shows and what we're able to get done when it comes to representation from me. I can't speak for everybody, but for our own experience, for cases that are successful, we are able to get it done. And, like one of my first cases, in fact, where we were able to get it sorted out, the veteran was able to not just get law school covered, but because the veteran was smart and listened to me and saved back just a little bit of his GI Bill, we were able to get that same veteran approved for not just the law degree, but also a graduate degree on top of that, a master's degree, because under the argument that when it comes to VR&E, entry-level employment actually is not really the requirement. You're supposed to put the person into entry or train them up to a point of entry to an appropriate level of employment, which frequently, if you're a disabled person, is certainly not entry level, because you're going to need a leg up. You're going to need help overcoming your definite competitive disadvantage. And so part of that could be getting a graduate degree in addition to your law degree, or a graduate degree in addition to your medical school, like an MPH in that context. Master's in Public Health, or an MPP, Master in Public Policy, or when it comes to law school, maybe an LLM, or some other kind of thing in psychology, whatever. There's a whole host of things. But the good news is that not only can you get it paid for, but if you save back just a scintilla of your GI Bill, you can use, or receive rather, the entire GI Bill rate, the actual rate that it would be, through VR&E for the entire duration of the approved training. So for that case that I just explained to you, that veteran, because they saved back just a little bit, I can't remember if it was like a week or two or whatever it was, but at that point in time got approved for 48 more months of training in a very high cost city where I don't remember if it was like $3,500 at the time, or I think it was closer to $4,000. So $4,000 a month for training in this additional thing beyond a bachelor's degree, and 40, what would that would have been like $48,000 in subsistence payment, tax free, in addition to disability. And they're able to do that for the entire duration of training. It's fantastic. So I want anyone watching this, to know that there's hope. There's programs out there for you, not just Veteran Readiness and Employment. There are other methods to get school covered. So even if you can't get it through Veteran Readiness and Employment, for veterans that hit 100%, you can get your student loans waived if you've never done it before. Get your student loans waived as a benefit through the Department of Education, and they will wipe out your student loans. Now, you don't necessarily get the subsistence payment, which is pretty great, but it's still not bad. It's still not bad. So anyway, so that's the good news. I come bearing good news. The good news is that you can get law school paid for if you have an employment handicap and a serious employment handicap. And just to kind of summarize what that means, an employment handicap is basically you have to have a vocational impairment. The vocational impairment has to be substantially caused or linked to your service-connected disabilities. And the VRC will need to determine whether you've overcome the effect of your service-connected disabilities through qualifying for employment or actual employment. There is some nuance to this. So like if you're unemployed, so this is also good news. If you're unemployed and your unemployment is not within your control, meaning you've been applying for other jobs and you cannot get those other jobs, and you have objective evidence demonstrating this, then you will have, they have no choice but to approve you for an employment handicap. Now, that doesn't mean that you'll get approved for law school, but it does mean you will be found entitled or should be found entitled to Veteran Readiness and Employment. Now, I do get a lot of cases where the VRC makes a mistake and they're not found to have that minimum level of entitlement. And there's many ways to get that fixed if in fact the evidence suggests that, it should be. So there's that. But then moving on, serious employment handicap, all that really means is all the same things as an employment handicap, with the exception of the vocational impairment must be called significant. Okay. So you can look up what significant means in the dictionary. VRE also has its own kind of vaguish criteria. Sometimes they follow those rules, sometimes they don't. But anyway, point is that there's hope out there. So, that's the good news. So if you're employed also, hey, there's still hope. If your employment aggravates your disabilities, again, if your employment aggravates your service-connected disabilities, then you may also qualify for Veteran Readiness and Employment and could potentially also be approved to become a lawyer or a doctor or something like that despite being employed. I can tell you from personal experience that I have helped people win after receiving adverse decisions, who already are working. The job aggravates their disabilities. I've had cases where they have an undergrad, cases where they even have grad training. I've had other cases where they had a doctorate. So, one in particular, actually, I should say, and hope to have more because that was a heck of a fun case. But I've had cases where people have had a lot of different kinds of disabilities and a lot of different backgrounds, educational backgrounds, you name it. Every case is unique and different. That's part of what makes the program hard when it comes to providing representation. It's not easy to win some of these cases. Of course, some cases are easy to win because the agency made stupid mistakes, which happens all the time. And then there's others that actually require, are very difficult, and not everyone wins, including my clients. But, we do our best to try to get that sorted out. And Lord willing, and what is it they call it? The sea rises and the sun don't shine. I don't know, whatever the saying goes. We do what we can. So anyway, I hope that helps. VR&E does pay for these things. How do I know? Do I know from personal experience? Yes, because they paid for me to become a lawyer. So there's that. I've also been able to successfully get people approved to become doctors and lawyers as an attorney, representing them in claims against the program. So I know this from experience, both as a professional, also as a human, a disabled veteran myself. And I also know, because I see it all the time and because it happened to me, that VR&E officials do sometimes lie or mislead veterans into believing that they don't pay for grad school or to become doctors, lawyers, all that stuff. And it happens. I've caught them. I personally caught them. It's happened to me. So it's just one of those things. And I know from personal experience, again, because it happened to me. And I found it in writing in my file that I requested 6 years or whatever later and finally discovered that I was misled. So, these are things that happen. If you're watching this and you're somebody that helps veterans, you're not necessarily, needing this benefit for yourself, just be aware that veterans are misled by the Department of Veterans Affairs on a regular basis, sometimes explicitly and sometimes implicitly through omission or other forms of communication where the veterans are just not given all the information needed to make an informed decision. And it happens. It happens a lot. It's really unfortunate. But the good news is that there's hope. You can appeal. You can talk to lawyers like myself. You can talk to VSOs. Just be aware when you're talking to a VSO or a CVSO, some are going to be knowledgeable about veteran readiness and employment, but most will not want to help you on your case. They just aren't familiar with it. They won't know what to do. And so they may refer you out, or they may just say, oh, sorry, you're tough luck. So just be aware that that can happen. And if it happens, don't stop there. Just keep going. And anyway, so that's what I have for you today, that there's hope. Now I'm going to jump into the questions. And if you have a question and you want to get into this, feel free to ask. So here's first person. Excuse me. My counselor paying me 2023 MHA versus, I'm not sure what the MHA, BHA. I'll bet that's a typo somehow. How to fix this? Well, at the end of the day, any of these things are rooted in a decision. Okay. So there was a decision somewhere. You can submit a higher level review, or if you have new and relevant evidence, which you probably do in this instance, even if it's sparse, you could do either one, a higher level review or a supplemental claim. Try to figure out when the decision might have been made. So for you, the flip should have occurred or been initiated maybe in October and then triggered by January, sometime in there. So if that's you, then do it now. Submit a higher level review. Estimate the day you think that the decision was made. Maybe they didn't send you a letter. So what? Something happened to pay you at the lower amount. So put in a higher level review, put in the date approximately when you think that was made, and then articulate your point, both in the higher level review form, which is the VA form 20-0996. So do that. And then aside from that, then put an attachment on there like an addendum and write out what it is. So that's how I would handle that. I think it would be super effective. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I really think that it could be a good thing for you to do a higher level review in this context. If you have questions, though, I would suggest, because again, you don't have a decision, so it's not like you can hire an attorney. So you don't have something like in front of you that's a black and white decision. What I would say to do is to go talk to a VSO maybe and have them prod for you if you can find one who's in the regional office willing to do it, even though there's really no decision. So you might be able to do that. Another alternative could be putting in a congressional inquiry with your local U.S. congressman and woman, and then doing that. So that could be another alternative to figure out what's happened. Or the VA hotline, formerly called the White House hotline, could be another method to get that done. So I hope that helps answer your question. And then next we have, do you need a certain disability? Okay, great question. So generally you need at least a 10% rating. That'll trigger probably your first appointment. And then if you're only at 10%, then the VRC would need to find that your service-connected disabilities and everything else they need to consider amount to a serious employment handicap, otherwise SEH is the acronym, serious employment handicap. And if that happens, then you'll be found entitled. If you only are found to have an employment handicap, you'll probably get denied. And they'll tell you, well, you need a 20% disability rating if you only have an employment handicap. But that's something they can't really tell until after they do the assessment. So just so you know, that's how that works. So not 70%, you're well above and beyond what you need to get into the program. So 70% is well above and beyond. And aside from that, they just need to verify certain things about the aggravation, qualifications, stuff like that, that they will sort out during the initial evaluation. So I hope that helps. Then we have Devil Dog. Love the name. That's great to hear. Getting accepted to law school. Base requirements. I'm not sure what that means, base or basic. Getting accepted to law school, well, you have to take the LSAT. Then or at least for now, that may change in about a year where you don't need to take the LSAT anymore. But you may still need to take some kind of entrance exam. Then you need letters of recommendation. I think it's 3. And then some other stuff, miscellaneous resume. They want to see your whole background to get approved for law school. That's the law school, though. For VR&E to approve law school, that's a different story, and you have to meet the requirements for basic entitlement to veteran readiness and employment, and they have to determine that becoming a lawyer is the best path for you, which may or may not happen. It happens sometimes. I do my best to help as many veterans as possible get into law school. So it's one of my favorite things to do and to succeed at, because it's a unique skill set that you cannot do really in any other context. I know some people say that, being a paralegal is like similar, but it's really not. They're not the same. So even a paralegal, you don't learn to think like a lawyer, and you can't do things, that you can only do if you're a lawyer. So anyway, I hope that helps clarify anything there. Next is scheduled for LSAT. Great. In VR&E, awesome. Will VR&E pay for LSAT tutoring? So VR&E may pay for LSAT tutoring. Make sure that if you are in VR&E, I'm assuming maybe you're in your undergrad and that was approved. Make sure that that you request in writing, signed and dated, okay? A good form for this is the 21-4138 personal statement. And make sure you put in there that you request becoming a lawyer, which requires approval of and sponsorship of law school, okay? Don't just put law school. It's important you always connect the type of training that you're requesting with the vocational goal. A lot of veterans don't understand that, and when they say law school, obviously probably mean becoming a lawyer. I don't know anybody that would want to do law school and not become a lawyer because it's so much work. It doesn't make it. It's like going to be an MD and being like, I don't feel like being a physician after all. Piss on it. That's not. It just doesn't make sense because it's a lot of work. So anyway, hope that helps. So if you're in your undergrad and you're coming into it's the final countdown, right? About to graduate. But if you're thinking grad school and you're watching this and you've always wondered about it, veterans with a serious employment handicap are supposed to be considered at least for additional or higher level training beyond what is generally considered necessary on account of our disabilities, feasibility, labor market stuff, things like that. So there's a lot of variables anyway. And I would encourage you to, if you have not seen that request or your VRC saying, well, we only do entry level, that's a lie. There is no regulation that talks about, quote, entry level. It's not a thing. There are certain local policies that push that onto veterans, but local policies are not supposed to trump or override your rights under the Constitution, the U.S. Code, and the regulations. But VR&E does follow and even mandate in some instances following policies that are against the regulations. They contradict. And VR&E knows it. They follow them anyway. I've talked to many senior officials in VR&E, and they are aware that they require things that are against the law, contrary to the law, and they don't care. They're doing it anyway. Okay. That's part of why I do what I do, because it's been my apparently life work now, to help veterans become leaders in society through veteran readiness and employment and other methods. There are other things out there outside of VR&E to help people get into positions of leadership, or at least, types of professions that lend themselves to being leaders in your community. Not just this though. So I'm working on other projects as well, as far as politics go, to help veterans get into positions within local politics. So yeah, I hope that helps. So they do cover this in addition to law school, LSAT, and stuff like that. So just make sure that you, when you do request it, though, you put it in writing, and anything you're putting in writing that you are requesting approval of the vocational goal and the training to get to the vocational goal, not just the training. Okay, very important to be as clear as possible. Then we got a thank you, whoever you are. I'm not sure who this is because I can't see your name. Somebody else, when I'm done with my PhD, can I expect any support job? So job placement, yes. With a PhD, they will help with that. Business development, maybe, but I wouldn't, if I'm telling people to do it today, don't hold your breath on that. VR&E will require, in many instances, a fight for self-employment. I've helped people do that, but it's, and I was successful myself. It took me a couple years to, let's see how many years, 3 or 4, to finally get VR&E to approve funding for my startup stuff. It took a long time. So it was quite a fight. And be ready for a fight, be ready for, federal officials to make false statements about you. Unfortunately that's kind of where we're at today, because they don't get, not really held accountable, as we're all kind of seeing play out on when it comes to some positions. Why does Voc Rehab still check in if you've been kicked out? So they're required in some instances to check in if your case was discontinued or is in interrupt status. I think discontinued, I know they usually don't, but interrupt for sure. So if your case has been interrupted, they will check on you in theory. So hope that helps. They're just generally required to do it for some reason, based on their policies or whatever. Carlos G. Expired GI Bill. Would I still be able to get 48 months from VR&E? So the answer is yes. You will just get the lower dollar amount for subsistence. Now, there is a I should probably do a video on this, because there are some exceptions that are interesting, where if you already completed training and have requested VR&E benefits, it could be possible in some instances to get your GI Bill replenished and then reinstated for the purpose of getting a boost up to the GI Bill percentage in limited circumstances. Very limited circumstances. Okay. So I would just encourage you, just know that that's maybe an option, but it probably slim, but hope that helps. Then we have Mr. Amsterdam. Good to meet you, Mr. Amsterdam. Do you recommend having an acceptance letter? Okay. So veteran wants to know, is it better to have an acceptance letter in hand for these when going to the first meeting? So it depends on your circumstance. You could have it and then they deny you because they decide that maybe this additional training or this vocational goal is not suitable, or you don't need it, or, things like that. So it's not always going to help. And there are instances where I can think of where it might hurt. It just depends. It's a very each veteran has to kind of, do your best to read the tea leaves. There are instances where you may be better off without an acceptance letter, but where you go into VR&E and you try to just get approved, and then through the evaluation and planning process or vocational, assessment process, where you're trying to pick a vocation, then you settle on becoming a lawyer, and then you evaluate how best to do these things. So it depends, no case is the same. And, unfortunately, a lot of these VRCs, are all over the place. Hey, Sergeant V, good to see you. If you sue the VA and are found favorable, just like a civilian suits, can VA be found? So to this question, the answer is, I'm not totally sure if you mean sue, like, I don't know what you mean for sure. So I'm guessing, usually the answer here is going to be no. First of all, you can't really sue VA. And if you do sue for example, in the context of a Federal Tort Claims Act, where you're suing for malpractice, you're going to be responsible to pay, your attorney fees. Your attorney will get the check, and then from there they will disperse to you the remainder minus their fees and costs related to the litigation. So you don't get your legal fees wiped out. The exception being if you are at the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims and there's an EJA, Equal Access to Justice Act, there where they're substantially unjustified in their position and the veteran's successful, then yeah, you don't get it. How do I say it? You'll get like limited fees, but it's not at the going rate for an attorney. So like an example would be, so I've been an attorney for over a decade. If I do a FOIA litigation and we're successful, the FOIA, the fees in that context, because I've been an attorney for over a decade, would be over, I think it's like $570 an hour, 60, I don't know, something like that. And so that's what the DOJ, I can't remember the name of the document, but it's a matrix, and that's the reasonable rate for representation of that type. So $570 an hour, or 60, something like that. And so when you have EJA, it is a severely reduced rate. So like $220, so there's an incentive for me as an example. If I have to work the same amount of hours and I have to choose, do I want to do EJA at the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, or do I want to just do FOIA litigation for, reporters or something, and I have only a finite amount of time? Well, I'm probably going to, just common sense for any business owner, you're going to go the direction of the where the fees are at, so that you can, eat and afford to pay your overhead, which, a lot of people don't realize that as an attorney, your overhead is significant. I think I'm paying well over $1,000 a month in just insurance. So, to do everything that I do. And then you have like Westlaw software, software stack is probably $3,000 a month or something like that. It's a lot. So, $4,000 for breathing. I breathe and I have $4,000, and then if you have a lease, employees, stuff like that, it adds up super quick. People don't think about that when it comes to law because they can't really see. It's not like you have a factory where you're building widgets, and so it's just a different thing. But instead we're building leaders. You know what I mean? Like trying to get people, to get their schooling for free. So anyway, I hope that helps. Then let's see here. That's what I was told. Why do they lie so much? I don't know. I wish I knew. I'm just not sure what the answer is there. Recently accepted and started working on my doctoral degree. I'm enrolled using remaining 36. Bill, it's a 3-year degree. So if I remain on track, I'm hoping why on earth would you do that? No, that's a horrible idea. All right. So whoever wrote this is a horrible plan. If VRE approves you then, like in a couple years, they'll probably approve you now, right? Odds are, And so why on earth would you chew up your GI Bill when you can use VR&E to cover the entire thing? And then you save your GI Bill. So later in life, when you want to be a basket weaver or become a pilot or something else, work and do anything, you can use your GI Bill then. Just save it. Don't use it up now, unless it's a use or lose kind of thing, which maybe it is for the post 9/11. I'm not sure for you, but I would save it and use the VRE program and pay for the whole thing. That's what I would do, and then save your GI Bill for something else if you want. That's how I would approach it, but to each their own. Unless of course, maybe I misunderstood this, but yeah. So after how much should reapply after getting kicked out? I know a lot of people who, if you got kicked out, what that basically means is you were discontinued for cause. Likely they found that you were uncooperative, or at least that's what they alleged. That doesn't mean true, but just alleged. And so if it's alleged, that you were uncooperative and then they bounced you, you have to demonstrate that the reason that they kicked you out has been removed. So you could do that using like a supplemental claim, or you could just email them to try to, demonstrate that. But that's, anyway, I hope that helps. That's kind of the gist of it. So let's see here. Oh man, post 9/11 is 15 years. There you go. I wish I would have known this. Yeah, so post 9/11, depending on where you're at in that process, but I would try to get approved for VRE as soon as possible, because they also cover your books and things that the GI Bill does not cover. So, food for thought, So anyway, I hope that helps. I don't see any other questions. So I just, appreciate y'all being on here. I'm going to pray real quick. Dear Lord, thank you so much for these people on this call. Ask that you help them, understand their full potential, and to realize that through VR&E benefits, and help them to cut through the red tape and help us to help them, get more educated and get better access than what they currently have. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Hey, have a great weekend. God bless. And otherwise, hope that you all do very well, especially over this weekend, right? It's like Groundhog's Day or something. Got to go watch a Bill Murray movie. So anyway, talk to you all later. Bye.